Fish, the salt of the sea. Once mighty kings and queens of all water, now just a mere flap in the ocean. But did you know that fish are also great economists? In Tokyo Tsukiji market, you will be competing to see who is the best fish salesman around.
You know, this isn't about fish that sell, it's about people that sell fish.
I'm going to have to rewrite this entire script. Welcome back to the Pocket series, a 6-episode arc of board game reviews that feature the best board games that can fit in your pocket. In previous episodes, we covered Sprolopolis, an excellent 18-card game about building cities, and the Shut Up and Sit Down Nonsense box, the game that puts the party into charades party. Whilst the previous entries were all about delivering the most game in the smallest footprint, today we have something different. Welcome to one of the world's finest fish markets, where the everyday hustle and bustle of slimy deals fills the air with a heady aroma.
Do you mean the smell of fish?
Yes. Tokyo Tsukiji Market is an economic simulator where you'll spend money on boats and fishing licenses, catch barrels of fish, and sell them to your competitors. And here's the catch: this box has as many components and as many ideas as something like this, or even something like this, but conformed to a size that would allow it to be dispensed by a Japanese vending machine. Better yet, these tiny feeples are adorable. Not only does their diminutive size make them cute, and in the case of fugu fish, also deadly, but they're not just a carbon copy of the same board game pieces we see in every German box of wood. Look at this eel! Better yet, look away from it and let's look at this octopus instead. Did you know that octopuses have 3 hearts, brains inside of their tentacles that make them behave independently from their body, an attack beak, and finally, the scientific name for this cutie is Opisthoteuthes adorabilis, which, as far as I'm concerned, is just nature's way of saying that Pac-Man ghosts are real. Don't get fooled by these fresh bits. If the cold colors of the minimalist design haven't given it away yet, Tokyo Tsukiji Market is as mean as it is lean. And when I say lean, I don't mean box size, because it's actually quite chunky for that type of box. Before we dive into the deep end of the rules pool, we thought it would be well worth mentioning that Tokyo Tsukiji Market borrows quite a lot from Container, also a game of boats getting cargo and selling it to other players at whatever price you think the cargo is worth. But unlike Container, none of the values of what you're selling are obscured, and everything that you sell has its own individual rule set. Mackerel behaves differently from squid, and squid behaves differently from salmon, which makes sense because we all know that squid are well-behaved good boys and salmon is a neon rebel. If you want to learn more about Container, you can watch the Shut Up and Sit Down review, with the caveat that we didn't love that game nearly as much as they did, and they themselves have recently said that further plays didn't make it shine that much either. Tokyo Tsukiji Market revolves around a simple principle. Each round you can do 2 actions out of a list of 3. You can either go fish, buy fish, or visit fish markets. If you decide to go fish, you will once again get 2 boating actions, and once again you will have a list of 3 possibilities. If your boat is docked, you can send it out to sea, which is represented by the vastness of this table. If your boat is already at sea, you can actually fish, and then you will get a barrel of fish, and if your boats have barrels on them, you can send them back to the dock. When you fish, each fishing license you have will let you get 1 barrel of that type of fish. So if I had a mackerel license and a salmon license, and I had 2 boats out at sea, with 1 boating action I could get a salmon barrel and also a mackerel barrel. But if in that example I had 3 boats, that 3rd boat could not get any more barrels because I only have 2 licenses and I'm a responsible barrel fisher. Once your boats have barrels, you can, as an action, return them to your harbor, and then whatever they have on them, you have to immediately put it up for sale. That's right, that fish you caught isn't for you. It's for the other people sitting at the table and trying to financially outplay you. But don't worry, because they'll give you money for it. profit. How much money? Well, that's entirely up to you. Immediately when your ships land, each barrel has to be placed on one of the value spots on your market. So you could price this barrel of mackerel at 100 yen, 400 yen, and since there's a spot that lets you make up your own number, 750,000,000 yen. I don't know if you noticed, but once fish has been out there for a while, it will develop new, different flavors. And for some reason, people don't like those flavors. So if the round comes back to you and your fish barrels haven't been sold yet, they will immediately degrade. That doesn't really affect your fish in any way just yet, but if another round goes by and no one buys your fish, it has so many new flavors that you have to now throw it away. So much of Tokyo Tsukiji market lies in that one moment of split-second decision making. How much do I value my barrels at? Which is a good question actually. How much do you value your barrels at? What are their values? Well, to explain that, we first need to explain how you win. In a game of fish, you either win or you accidentally eat a poorly filleted fugu and die. Just saying that joke out loud made me feel like my freshness value dropped. Anywho, to win, you have to accrue the largest amount of money. The game end will be triggered if you have either 5,000 yen or 50 worth of resources, unless, and let's say you got 5,000 yen, you have less resources than all the other players on the table. The same is true for resources. If you trigger the game end via having 50 resources and you have the least money on the table, then the game doesn't end. When the game does end, each resource will be converted to 100 yen, and then that's your total. Whoever has the most money will win. But each fish on this planet has not been made equal. Mackerel, for example, is always only worth a single resource, whereas salmon is worth 4 resources if you bought it degraded, or F resources if you bought it fresh, where F is equal to the number of salmon owned by players at the end of the game. I know, right? So here's the conundrum. Every fish you buy from another player is essentially money, but money you can't spend on buying things like bigger boats or new fishing licenses. Which brings us back to pricing up fish. Let's say you bring in a barrel of red snapper and at the moment it's worth 6 resources. You know you probably shouldn't price it at 600 yen or higher, since no one's going to give you money for nothing. You reckon that 400 yen is probably a reasonable price, so you go ahead and... Wait a minute, what if no one's gonna buy it? What do I do then? Of course, every time I take a boating action, I can just reprice it, but then everyone's going to know I'm desperate, and then my snapper's just going to snap away. But if that decision might seem nerve-wracking, let me tell you, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Like we mentioned before, every fish has its own rules. So red snapper is worth 6 resources, right? Except with every red snapper purchased, the value of all red snappers goes down, which means that anything between 500 yen and 100 yen could be either a great and or terrible price. It's basically Schrodinger's fish value. This exact moment in Tokyo Tsukiji market is the source of all highs and lows, and I am here for it. You'll gasp when someone sells an eel for way too low a price. You'll gasp when someone puts up a mackerel for 7,000 yen, and then you'll realize they probably just didn't want anyone to buy it. Your personal markets are the dispenser of drama and friction. They're the unbelievable moments that bring Tokyo Tsukiji market to life. They're also the reason why we wouldn't recommend this game to a majority of our viewers. Now, before you get upset that we dedicated one of the 6 slots of the Pocket series to a game that isn't going to be a surefire hit, and a game that frankly isn't going to remain in our collection, I'm gonna tell you that I think this could be someone's favorite game of all time, and I'm going to tell you why. But first, let's analyze some of the problems. We described the first of the 3 actions, going fishing, in detail. The second action is perhaps the simplest one in the game, buying fish from other players. When you choose to buy fish, you can buy any amount of fish from any amount of players for the listed prices, simply giving them the yen and converting their barrels into an actual fish. What you do with that fish is entirely up to you. Let's say that you bought eel, which looks a little bit rude. What can you do with it? Well, you can go back to the eel market and sell it. How much for? The price of eel depends entirely on what you do in this game. Every time someone fishes eel, the value of eel goes up. And as soon as someone sells it, it dramatically plummets down, making eel the Russian roulette of fish. Buy eel early in the game and you can get it for an easy 200 yen. Then sit on it, wait for more eel to get fished and sell it for a fortune. Unless, of course, someone fishes a bunch of eel, brings it back home on the same turn and immediately puts it up for sale. The next player then buys it all and sells it to the eel market, plummeting the price, and then you're left with worthless eel, which is, I believe, how Britain ended up with jellied eel. Because what else do you do with it? This is, again, all very compelling stuff. Each type of fish is a puzzle to solve, framed against a backdrop of a cutthroat economics game. Except for these puzzles to hold weight, you have to have a fantastic framework for that economics game to support them. Considering that no matter how many fish you fish, you will always have to sell them at something less than they're worth, because otherwise who's going to buy them? Which makes selling fish bad business and buying fish good business, which brings the question, why fish fish? In every game of TTM I've played, the person that won was the person sitting directly to the left of the person who got overly excited about fishing. Because as soon as they brought in the boats, the person sitting next to them immediately bought everything up, leaving none fish for the other players, whilst their economy is flourishing because they're buying and selling. Buying and selling. Why would you be the person that fishes a lot? Well, the game makes it tempting. First of all, you need money and you can make a lot of money by fishing. Plus, there's all these cool tools that let you be really, what's the word? Efficient. Come on, you knew that had to happen. Anyway, here's a barge. Barges are neat because unlike other boats, they don't fish themselves. They just sit in the ocean, and whilst you or other boats fish, the barge immediately hoovers up all the barrels, letting you fish and deliver them with a single step of the fishing action. If you buy the barge, you will make a monstrous amount of money very fast and probably come in second because whoever bought the fish made more money than you did. Tokyo Tsukiji Market is a game that is only as strong as its weakest link. If one person starts pricing things at silly low prices because they misjudged the mathematical puzzle, the person next to them will win. If one person pushes the fishing button too hard, the person next to them will win. And so on. Okay, then this is a game that benefits from experience, right? With savvy plays, surely there's a good time to be had. Well, here's the thing. The name of the game is buying and selling, and if everyone's coy about selling, then there's also not much buying. With savvy plays, this fast-paced wet slap of cold bucks grinds to a screeching halt. And whilst we generally avoid comparisons to similar games, I can't help but invoke Container here, because whilst I absolutely loathe the secret values of goods you're buying and selling, at least there was a sense of mystery. In Tokyo Tsukiji Market, halfway through the game, it's plainly obvious who's going to win. It's the person with the most things. You can try and edge them out, but the only way you can do that is by having them not buy things. And the way you achieve that is by not selling things, not fishing. And then how are you going to make money? But here's where we'll throw Tokyo Tsukiji Market a fishbone. The third action in the game is to visit one of the game's many markets. And when I say many, I mean look at all of these possibilities. Not only is every fish market a new idea that you can't wait to explore, but also there's external markets which spin the game into weird, unpredictable directions. From aquariums that'll let you sell fish that you otherwise wouldn't normally even be able to banks that not only will let you take out loans, but also buy out other people's loans. Every one of these markets is a tantalizing injection of possibilities. Better yet, each game you will only play with a selection of different fish and external markets, meaning that every game of Tokyo Tsukiji market is a decadent snarl. But Efka, I hear you say, isn't overfishing really bad for the environment? Don't worry, Tokyo Tsukiji market has you covered. First of all, none of these are real fish. Second, it has an overfishing mechanism, which obviously isn't going to solve the world's problems of sustainability, but it has an overfishing mechanism. It's a nice touch thematically, simulating the dangers of wanton capitalism, but also it's an interesting gameplay twist. Anytime you overfish a type of fish, that market will be removed from the game and a new one will be introduced, spinning the game's plates one more time to offer a surprising twist on established strategies. And I can absolutely see that there will be a group out there who will persevere through the rough edges and then find themselves in an endless trawl of exploration. But for us, I think we're gonna have to close the lid on this box before it gets a little bit too, Framing this game into a success requires a group that's not only as steady and calm as a rock, but also has pitch perfect timing to strike at opportunities. To paraphrase, to have fun with this box, you have to play it in a nest of vipers. But because it doesn't have as strong a structure as something like Root, you also have to carry that nest of vipers whilst you're wearing stilts. Finally, this box says right here that you can play it with 2 players, and it's about as good at 2 as tin mackerel.
Hey, I love mackerel.
Well, do you like this game at 2 players?
No.
Then you don't love mackerel. That's it for part 3 of the Pocket series, which will return soon but not immediately. We will be injecting a regular MPI review in between. In our next installment, we'll be coming back to another one of Button Shy's wallet games, Tassimasi. I can guarantee you that there's no better card game in the world that is about the art of Victorian flower giving. If you're enjoying the Pocket series, it's brought to you by the power of our Patreon supporters. Today's Patreon shoutout goes out to Lars Hoffman, who's been supporting us for months, and it's because of people like Lars that we get to explore these kooky, strange games and tell you all about them.